The soft morning light filtered through the tall windows of Maplewood Diner, casting a warm golden glow over the polished wooden tables and cozy red leather booths. Clara Evans, 24, moved gracefully between the tables, her fair skin catching the sunlight, soft brown hair tied neatly into a low ponytail with loose strands framing her oval face. Her hazel eyes sparkled with kindness, and a gentle smile rested on her lips as she balanced a tray of steaming coffee cups. The diner hummed with quiet conversation and the clink of cutlery, yet Clara's presence seemed to hold a calm, comforting gravity amidst the routine bustle. At a corner booth sat Thomas, an old man in his late 70s, frail and hunched, his thinning gray hair peeking from under a worn cap. Deep lines marked his weary face, and his pale, watery blue eyes carried a quiet loneliness that contrasted sharply with the lively warmth of the diner. His hands trembled slightly as he held a chipped coffee cup, unaware that a small act of kindness about to unfold would change his morning, and perhaps his life, forever. Clara's steps slowed as she approached him, a plate of warm breakfast balanced carefully in her hands. Her soft smile met his uncertain gaze, and in that fleeting, gentle moment, the air seemed to shimmer with the unspoken promise of compassion, connection, and quiet hope. The morning sun spilled softly through the large windows of Maplewood Diner, illuminating the polished wooden tables and cozy red leather booths in a warm, golden glow. The air carried the gentle hum of conversation, the subtle clinking of cutlery, and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Clara Evans, 24, moved gracefully between the tables, her fair skin catching the sunlight, soft brown hair tied neatly into a low ponytail with a few loose strands brushing her cheeks. Her hazel eyes shone with warmth and kindness, and her gentle smile lent a comforting presence to everyone she passed. She wore a crisp red waitress uniform, neatly fitted over her figure, with a freshly tied white apron at her waist and modest black heels. Every movement, balancing trays of steaming coffee and plates of breakfast, was smooth, deliberate, and infused with care. At a corner booth, Thomas sat hunched in his worn brown jacket over a faded beige shirt, threadbare brown trousers, and scuffed shoes. Frail and weathered, his deeply lined face bore the mark of years spent in quiet struggle. His pale, watery blue eyes, wide with quiet anticipation, lingered on the menu he hadn't yet touched. His thin, trembling hands clutched the edge of the table, knuckles white, as if bracing for the day ahead. He seemed almost invisible to the bustling diner around him, lost in his own world of isolation and weariness. Clara approached his booth, balancing a simple plate of scrambled eggs and toast, setting it down gently beside his chipped coffee cup. She leaned slightly forward, offering a small, genuine smile that lit up her hazel eyes. Thomas looked up, startled, his lips trembling as gratitude mingled with disbelief. The golden sunlight reflected softly across the tabletop, illuminating this quiet, cinematic moment, the first spark of kindness that promised to change the course of his morning, and perhaps his life, forever. Thomas shifted slightly in his corner booth, his frail frame hunched beneath the worn brown jacket, threadbare trousers, and scuffed shoes. The chipped coffee cup trembled in his thin, weathered hands as he studied the plate of scrambled eggs and toast Clara had set down for him. His watery blue eyes widened, a mix of surprise, pride, and hesitation flashing across his deeply lined, weary face. He had come to the diner expecting nothing more than a simple breakfast, yet here was this young woman, bright-eyed and warm, offering him not just food but kindness, seemingly without expectation. Clara Evans remained a few steps away, leaning slightly forward, her soft brown hair in a low ponytail with loose strands framing her oval face. Her hazel eyes radiated patience and care, warm and steady, and a gentle smile curved her lips. She adjusted the crisp red uniform neatly over her figure, the white apron tied snugly at her waist, as she rested one hand lightly on the booth's edge. The golden morning sunlight filtered through the windows, catching the soft strands of her hair and casting a tender glow over the table, highlighting the intimate human connection forming in this ordinary yet extraordinary moment. Thomas's lips parted slightly as he murmured, "Miss, I didn't order this." His voice was frail but sincere, carrying the quiet dignity of a man who had lived through hardship yet still retained his pride. Clara's reply was soft, yet firm with warmth, I thought you might like a warm breakfast. It's on me." Her words were accompanied by a reassuring nod, her gentle eyes locking with his, offering comfort that transcended the simplicity of the act. Around them, the diner's atmosphere remained lively yet softened in focus, the background diners blurred, emphasizing this quiet, cinematic exchange of kindness, trust, and human connection, a moment that would linger in both their hearts. The soft morning light in Maplewood Diner continued to spill through the tall windows, catching dust motes in the air and casting a warm, golden glow over the polished wooden tables and red leather booths. Thomas, frail in his worn brown jacket over a faded beige shirt and threadbare trousers, sat quietly at his corner booth, hands trembling slightly as he reached for the plate of scrambled eggs and toast Clara had placed before him. His pale, watery blue eyes lingered on her, filled with a mix of gratitude, curiosity, and surprise. Each movement of his thin, weathered hands was careful and deliberate, as if he were savoring not just the food but the gesture itself, a kindness so rare it left him momentarily speechless. Clara Evans stood beside him, soft brown hair tied neatly into a low ponytail with a few loose strands brushing her cheeks, her hazel eyes warm and steady. A gentle, reassuring smile graced her lips as she adjusted her crisp red waitress uniform and straightened the neatly tied white apron at her waist. She leaned slightly forward, one hand resting lightly on the edge of the booth, the other poised naturally at her side, her posture conveying both attentiveness and quiet compassion. The golden sunlight reflected off her hair and the polished tabletop, highlighting the intimate connection forming between them. Thomas's lips quivered as he finally found his voice. I don't know how to thank you," he murmured, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Clara responded with a soft, genuine smile, "You don't need to. I'm happy to help." Her words hung in the warm morning air like a promise, simple yet profound. Around them, the diner's other patrons went about their morning quietly, blurred in the background, leaving the focus entirely on this tender, cinematic moment, a fragile yet powerful exchange of human kindness, connection, and empathy that seemed to suspend time itself. The cozy warmth of Maplewood Diner was suddenly contrasted by a ripple of tension as three sleek black SUVs rolled slowly into the small parking lot outside. The polished vehicles gleamed under the morning sun, engines humming softly, their presence commanding attention. Inside, Thomas sat quietly in his corner booth, frail and hunched, wearing his worn brown jacket over a faded beige shirt and threadbare trousers. His pale, watery blue eyes widened as he spotted the approaching SUVs through the diner's large front windows, deep lines of surprise and curiosity etched across his weathered, fair-skinned face. His thinning gray hair peeked out from under his frayed cap, and his thin hands gripped the edge of the booth, knuckles pale and trembling. Clara Evans, 24, paused mid-motion near his booth, soft brown hair tied neatly in a low ponytail with loose strands framing her oval face. Her hazel eyes widened slightly in surprise and concern, lips parted in quiet astonishment. Her crisp red uniform and neatly tied white apron reflected her caring presence, while the golden morning sunlight highlighted the soft strands of her hair and the natural glow of her fair skin. One hand rested lightly on the booth for balance, the other still holding the plate of breakfast she had just served. Moments later, the diner's front door opened, letting in the warm morning light as Thomas's son stepped inside. Tall and composed, middle-aged, with neatly combed short graying hair and dressed in a dark blue tailored suit with polished brown leather shoes, he exuded both authority and concern. A professional bodyguard followed closely behind, dressed in a sharp black suit and sunglasses, maintaining a discreet protective presence. Thomas leaned forward in his booth, pale eyes glistening, hands trembling lightly, caught between disbelief and joy. Clara's hazel eyes widened, her lips curling into a gentle, proud smile as she observed the emotional reunion about to unfold. The golden light reflected off polished tables, emphasizing the intimate cinematic moment of anticipation, warmth, and long-awaited human connection. The morning sunlight poured through the tall windows of Maplewood Diner, casting a golden glow across the polished wooden tables and cozy red leather booths. Thomas, frail and hunched in his worn brown jacket over a faded beige shirt and threadbare trousers, rose slowly from his corner booth. His thin, trembling hands wrapped tightly around his tall, middle-aged son, whose neatly combed short gray hair and tailored dark blue suit gave him an air of quiet authority and warmth. The son's polished brown leather shoes scraped softly against the tiled floor as he leaned gently toward his father, one hand supporting his frail back, the other resting protectively on his shoulder. Thomas buried his face into his son's chest, eyes glistening, pale, watery blue tears streaming down his lined, weathered face. The years of struggle and loneliness seemed to melt away in that single, heartfelt embrace. Clara Evans stood beside the booth, her soft brown hair tied in a low ponytail with loose strands framing her fair-skinned face. Hazel eyes shimmered with unshed tears, lips curved in a gentle, proud smile. Her crisp red waitress uniform and neatly tied white apron reflected her attentive, caring presence. Thomas turned toward her, his frail hands extending a small, neatly wrapped packet. "For you, thank you, for everything," he murmured, the weight of gratitude and emotion palpable in his voice. Clara accepted it carefully, one hand trembling slightly as she realized the packet contained $5,000. Golden sunlight reflected softly off the polished tabletop, highlighting the warmth and humanity of this moment. Outside, the 3 black SUVs gleamed in the sunlight. Thomas climbed carefully into the lead vehicle, his son beside him, the professional bodyguard seated in the back, ever watchful. Through the diner's front windows, Clara pressed her palm lightly against the glass, tears glistening in her hazel eyes as she watched Thomas leave. A final glance, a silent thank you exchanged, and the SUVs rolled away, engines humming softly, leaving behind a quiet diner filled with golden light and a lasting imprint of kindness, gratitude, and human connection.